The conscious can't be controlled. They see the strings before they're pulled. Robert Greene. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. They manipulate you. Always. Everywhere. Everyone. Your mother, your partner, your boss, the guy selling insurance, the spiritual leader who speaks of love, the politician smiling from the screen, the ad that makes you doubt yourself, the book that says, just believe in yourself, even silence, even praise, even care. All of that can be a form of control. If you're not aware of it, you're already under it. This is not paranoia. This is the default human condition. Since childhood, you were trained to be liked, to be good, to be useful, to obey subtle signals of approval or disappointment, to adjust, to bend. And now you don't even see how you're being directed, framed, emotionally blackmailed. You think you're choosing, but often you're just reacting to an invisible command, someone else's desire, expectation, agenda. That's why you feel tired after talking to some people. That's why you feel guilt for saying no. That's why you shrink in situations where you should stand tall. Manipulation is not always evil. It's often unconscious, but it always serves someone. And it's rarely you. It uses your wounds, your need for love, your fear of being rejected. The more unhealed you are, the more strings are attached to you. And let's be honest, it's not only about others. You manipulate too. You smile when you don't want to. You flatter to avoid conflict. You play roles so they don't leave. You withhold your truth to keep the peace. You give to get. You stay silent, hoping someone will guess what you need. That's also control. Hidden, indirect, but still control. This video is not about blaming others. It's about seeing, about understanding how much of your life is not really yours. How many of your choices are prescripted? How many of your beliefs were implanted? Freedom doesn't start with courage. It starts with clarity. Seeing the game, recognizing the move before it hits, understanding the hook behind the words. And here's the hard part. Manipulation thrives in love, in families, in friendships, in romance. If you loved me, you would. Don't disappoint me. You're so ungrateful. It's not always violent. Sometimes it's wrapped in care. But the result is the same. You abandon yourself. Every time you act against your truth just to avoid shame, rejection, conflict, you're under influence. Every time you suppress your no to be accepted, you are not free. Every time you silence your needs so someone feels better, you trade authenticity for belonging. But something shifts the moment you start noticing. That moment when you hear a voice and think, wait, that's not mine. That's the beginning of immunity. Not coldness, not walls, but clarity. Power without force. Presence without pleasing. Boundaries without guilt. The ability to walk away without explaining yourself. The ability to say yes without selling yourself. The ability to love without losing yourself. And if this resonates, subscribe to the channel so more people can hear the truth that's usually kept in the shadows. This is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming real. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that changes everything. You didn't see the manipulation, not because you were stupid, but because you were trained not to see it. From the very beginning, you were rewarded for obedience and punished for resistance. Not directly, but emotionally. That's how control works best. It hides behind smiles, behind care, behind, I want what's best for you. As a child, you had no choice. To survive, you adapted. You read the room, you sensed the mood, You adjusted your behavior to avoid rejection. And the better you became at that, the more you lost touch with your inner compass. What you called being kind was often just survival in disguise. Your brain started to interpret manipulation as love. Approval became your drug, and anything that threatened it triggered panic. That's why, even now, when someone gets disappointed in you, you feel it in your stomach. When someone says, "I didn't expect this from you," you shrink. That's not adult reaction. That's your inner child fearing exile. And manipulators, consciously or not, feed on that fear. They sense where your buttons are. They press them gently or violently. It doesn't matter. What matters is you still respond the same way. You've read the books, you've tried boundaries, you've repeated affirmations, but it didn't work. Not because you failed, but because those methods don't address the root. You can't set boundaries if deep inside you're still afraid to be abandoned. You can't say no if your body still remembers that no meant being punished. You can't claim your space if you still believe you don't deserve it. This is not about discipline. This is about deprogramming, about going back and seeing where your ability to resist was broken. And this is exactly why manipulation is so effective. It doesn't fight you. It uses your own pain against you. The feeling of guilt, of duty, of being a good person, all of that can be weaponized. And it is, especially by those closest to you. That's not because they're evil. Often, they were raised the same way. But the cycle has to stop somewhere, and it stops with awareness. So, how do you spot manipulation in real time? One simple rule. If something makes you feel responsible for someone else's emotions, pause. If someone says, "You hurt me, but you were just being honest," pause. If someone's love always comes with conditions, pause. Manipulation often hides in subtle phrases. "I just thought you'd understand. You're the only one I can count on. After all I've done for you." These are not direct attacks. They're emotional hooks, and they work only if you're still hungry for approval. But what if you could step out of that hunger? What if you could feel whole without earning it? That's what makes you unmanipulable. When your worth is no longer up for negotiation. When your love is real but not submissive. When your empathy doesn't cost your truth. And if this feels true, subscribe to the channel. Because the more of us start seeing clearly, the less control they will have. And join the Telegram. That's where we go even deeper. Unfiltered, real talk. The kind of truth you won't find on mainstream platforms. Now take a breath. Feel your body. Ask yourself, where in my life am I still performing? The answer might sting, but it's the start of something powerful. You don't allow manipulation because you're weak. You allow it because it used to protect you. That pattern of pleasing, adjusting, giving in, it wasn't born out of stupidity. It was born out of necessity. As a child, you learned that being honest can cost you love, that saying no can trigger anger, that being different makes you a target. So, you chose what any intelligent child would choose. You became what others needed you to be. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You apologized when you didn't do anything wrong. You avoided conflict because it felt like danger. And now, as an adult, that same script runs in the background of your life. This is the invisible prison. You think you're being kind, supportive, easy to be with. But what's really happening is self-erasure. You vanish in conversations. You give in too quickly. You say yes when everything inside you screams no. And you justify it by telling yourself you're just being the bigger person. But deep down, you know it doesn't feel good. You know the cost is too high. You know that every time you betray your truth to keep the peace, something in you dies a little. This is not about becoming aggressive. It's about stopping the bleeding. Because manipulation only works when there's a wound to exploit, a fear of rejection, a need to be liked, a craving for validation. And until you face those things directly, you'll keep walking into the same traps. The faces change, the dynamics don't. It's not the manipulator that's the problem. It's the part of you that still needs to be chosen at any cost. Let's go deeper. Imagine someone gives you a look of disapproval. What happens in your body? Do you freeze? Do you smile and try to win them back? Do you start explaining yourself to prove you're not bad? That reaction is the key. It's your nervous system remembering that disapproval used to mean danger. That's not a flaw. That's a survival strategy. But it's not helping you anymore. You're no longer that child. You don't need to please to stay alive. You don't need to shrink to stay safe. Real strength is not loud. It's silent. It's the calm, grounded ability to sit with someone's disappointment and not collapse. To hold your boundary without shaking. To know what's yours and what's not. And that requires work. Not external work, internal. You don't fix this by changing others. You fix it by reclaiming the parts of you that were silenced. The part that says, "No, I don't agree." The part that says, "This doesn't feel right." The part that says, "I'm not responsible for your emotions." Here's a practical tool. The moment you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Ask, "Why am I explaining?" If it's to bring clarity, fine. If it's to avoid rejection, stop. You don't owe your truth to anyone. And the more you explain, the more power you leak. Let your no be a complete sentence. Let your silence speak when needed. Let your energy say, "I see your tactics and I'm not playing." You will lose people. That's the truth. Some will call you selfish. Others will guilt you. But what you'll gain is worth it. Peace, integrity, a sense of coming home to yourself. No more pretending. No more emotional gymnastics. That's what immunity feels like. Not coldness, not walls, just clarity and calm. And if that's what you're after, stay. Subscribe. Telegrams where we break it down further. Real tools, real conversations, and a space for those who are done performing. Real freedom isn't loud. It doesn't scream, doesn't prove, doesn't perform. It's quiet, unshakable. It's the kind of presence that doesn't need to convince anyone. When you're truly free, you no longer react to manipulation. You recognize it. You see it before it lands. You feel the hook coming and you don't bite. Not because you've become cold or distant, but because you've become rooted in yourself. There's nothing left to prove. You're no longer available for games disguised as love. Freedom looks like saying no and not needing to explain why. It looks like hearing disappointment in someone's voice and still choosing yourself. It looks like not replying to a guilt message, not rushing to fix what's not yours, not adjusting your truth just to keep the peace. It's when your decisions come from alignment, not fear. When your actions come from clarity, not pressure. When your love is not a transaction, but an offering. Free, honest, full of choice. It's also not about being perfect. You will still care. You will still feel the urge to please. The difference is, now you see it, and when you see it, you have a choice. Do I follow the old pattern, or do I stay with my truth? That split second is the birth of power. That inner pause is everything. It separates the unconscious life from the conscious one. And once you start living from that space, everything changes. You feel lighter, sharper, calmer, and yes, lonelier at times, but the kind of loneliness that feels clean, not empty, clear. This is the work. Not glamorous, not Instagram-worthy, but real. And if you're here for that, keep going. You're exactly where you need to be. Look around. The manipulation isn't just personal, it's systemic. It's in the way news is framed, in the tone of a headline, in what stories are told, and which ones are silenced. It's in advertising that doesn't sell a product. It sells an identity. You're not enough until you own this. You won't be loved until you fix that. Marketing doesn't speak to logic. It speaks to wounds. And the more unconscious pain you carry, the more vulnerable you are to being led without knowing it. Governments use fear to gain compliance. Religions use guilt to demand obedience. Education uses shame to enforce conformity. Social media uses validation to control attention. It's not a conspiracy, it's psychology. And most of it happens without words, through symbols, repetition, emotional priming, through making you feel like you're missing out, like you're behind, like you need to catch up or fit in. And that emotional urgency makes people easy to steer, not through facts, but through tension. Remember how the world shifted overnight during global crises? How entire populations were moved by images, slogans, and the illusion of choice. It wasn't always lies. That's not the point. The point is how easily narratives are built, emotions weaponized, and truth fragmented. And if you're not grounded inside, you'll be absorbed into whatever stream is loudest. That's why the real war is not outside. It's in your nervous system. Can you stay with uncertainty without needing an external answer? Can you feel fear without begging someone to save you? This isn't about resisting every message. It's about seeing how many of them were never yours to begin with. How many of your dreams were planted? How many of your fears were shaped? How much of your personality was built to survive in systems that profit from your confusion? That's the depth most people never reach, because it threatens everything they think they are. But once you start seeing through it, there's no going back. You notice the tone in someone's voice when they say, "I'm just trying to help." You feel the shift in your body when a brand says, "This is what success looks like." You hear the quiet panic in ads that push urgency. Only 2 days left. That's not information. That's pressure. That's manipulation. And when you no longer respond to it, you become unmovable, calm, awake, dangerous in the best way. Because now, you choose, and that makes you very hard to control. Becoming immune to manipulation doesn't happen in one moment of insight. It happens through daily practice. Not grand rituals or complicated systems, but simple, consistent inner work. The first tool is the trigger pause. Every time you feel a strong emotional wave, stop. Don't act, don't reply, don't explain. Just pause. In that space, ask yourself, is this coming from my truth or my fear? That 1 second of awareness can save you from days of self-betrayal. Because most manipulation relies on your automatic response. Guilt, panic, pleasing. The moment you interrupt that reaction, you break the loop. The second tool is emotional inventory. Every night, take 5 minutes to review your day and write down where you lost yourself. Where did you say yes when you meant no? Where did you perform? Where did you swallow your truth? This is not to judge, it's to see. Because once you see the patterns, you stop blaming others and start reclaiming your power. You realize manipulation isn't just what others do to you. It's what you allow by staying unconscious. The third tool is body awareness. The body never lies. When you're being manipulated, your chest tightens, your stomach sinks, your breath shortens. These are signals. Learn to read them. When someone says something nice, but your body recoils. Trust the body. Words can be fake. Energy rarely is. Ground yourself by noticing your feet, your breath, your spine. Manipulation thrives when you're disembodied. Presence kills control. The fourth tool is learning to disappoint. This is a muscle. You have to practice letting people be upset. Practice hearing "you've changed" and not rushing to fix it. Practice holding your no without panic. This isn't cruelty, this is maturity. Because the price of being liked by everyone is often your own freedom. And if someone needs you to betray yourself to love you, that's not love. That's emotional debt. The fifth tool is language clarity. Watch how you speak. Every time you say, "I guess," "maybe," "I don't know," but, you're softening your power. Start speaking with clean, firm words. Not aggressive, just grounded. Say what you mean. Own your number. Own your yes. The more precise your language, the harder it is to manipulate you. Vagueness invites control. Clarity creates boundaries. And finally, build silence into your life. Manipulation often hides in noise, urgency, emotional overload. Silence clears the fog. Take time every day with no input, no screens, no voices, just stillness. That's where you meet yourself again. That's where you hear your own signal, not the static of the world. These practices aren't flashy. They won't impress anyone, but they will rebuild your core. And over time, you'll notice situations that used to shake you now pass right through. People that once hooked you emotionally no longer touch you. You're no longer dancing for approval. You're not reacting. You're choosing. That's what freedom feels like. Calm, solid, quietly powerful. Here's the truth. Manipulation is not about the words being said. It's about what those words are trying to make you feel. Guilt, fear, obligation, doubt, pressure. That's the real language of control. And the most dangerous manipulations are never loud. They're soft, sweet, wrapped in concern. That's what makes them effective. They look like care, but feel like weight. They sound reasonable, but create confusion. They seem loving, but leave you drained. So what is manipulation really? It's any attempt to get you to act against yourself. Period. Whether it's through guilt, fear, charm, silence, flattery, or threat, the core is always the same. Someone wants something from you, and they're not asking directly. They're pulling strings instead. And here's the painful part. Many people do this without even realizing it. They don't know how to ask clearly. They don't know how to receive a no. So they pressure, twist, suggest, expect. And you, if you're not aware, you give in, thinking it's your choice. But there's one method that cuts through all of it. One question that reveals manipulation instantly. Ask yourself this: do I feel free right now, or do I feel obligated? That's it. That's the compass. It doesn't need analysis. It doesn't need psychology. It just needs honesty. Because manipulation always creates tension. Freedom feels light. Manipulation feels like a silent contract. Like you owe something. Like you're trapped in a debt you didn't agree to. Pay attention to that weight. Try it. Next time someone makes a request, or gives you advice, or shares their truth, pause and feel. Not what they said, but what it did to you. Did it open you or close you? Did it energize you or drain you? Did it respect your space or pressure your action? The body always knows. The mind can justify anything, but the body feels the truth. And the more you use this question, do I feel free or obligated? The sharper you get. You'll start noticing how many situations are just wrapped forms of control. You'll stop needing to confront people. You'll just stop giving them access. Quietly, clearly, consistently. That's real power, not resistance, sovereignty. If these words hit home, subscribe to the channel. Let the algorithms show this to those who are still stuck in silent contracts. And if you want deeper tools, the kind that don't fit into surface-level content, join the Telegram. That's where the real unpacking happens. And now, if you recognized yourself in this video, if something in you said, yes, this is what's been happening to me, write in the comments, I'm done performing. Let's see how many of us are choosing freedom over approval. Let's build a space for those who no longer want to live on a leash. This is not the end, it's the beginning of everything. When you start to see clearly, they can't touch you anymore. And that changes everything.